And we are live from South Carolina in the United States. Welcome back, everyone, to Priceless Takes, episode 46. I am your host, Luka Price, and joining me today, once again, is Mr. David Price, the NFL guru. David, how are you today?
Look, it's very hot in Brisbane, Vegas, and we need to get some cooler weather. I might come and see you in America.
Look, that might not be the worst idea. It's very nice here in South Carolina, David. I was walking around in shorts today in the start of December, which is something you don't see very often in many places around America. So I don't think that's a bad call from you.
35 degrees here, which I think is 90 in your language, and
Yeah,
it's a bit hot.
yeah, just around about that. But listen, David, we have plenty more to talk about than the weather because of a Fresh Friday episode that we gave to you guys, we had a monstrous NFL weekend with lots of action, lots of upsets, and sadly, lots of injuries. But we will get through all of it in Priceless Takes episode 46, starting off with the Monday Night Football action between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Jacksonville Jaguars, where Cincinnati rolled into town without Joe Burrow and shocked the Jacksonville Jaguars 34-31 in an overtime win, with kicker Evan McPherson walking off the game with a 48-yard field goal attempt. Now, the Cincinnati backup quarterback, Jake Browning, only his fourth ever NFL game, David, 32 of 37 completions for 354 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. On the other side, Trevor Lawrence, the Jacksonville star quarterback, who we both have high remarks for, 22 of 29 for 258 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But the story of the game, David, in this game, Trevor Lawrence suffered a high ankle sprain with 5 minutes 40 seconds to go in the fourth quarter of this game. The MRI revealed nothing serious, but he is in question for this week's game against the Browns. The backup quarterback for Jacksonville, CJ Beathard, went for 9 out of 10 completions, 63 yards, and led a game-tying drive to force the game into overtime. David, a lot of things happened in this game, but this, in my opinion, was a crushing defeat for the Jacksonville Jaguars in a game they really should have won, considering the fact that Trevor Lawrence did play for 55 minutes of the game. They dropped to 8-4 and now are only one game ahead of division rivals Houston and Indiana. David, a win last night for the Jaguars would have put them at the number one seed in the AFC. So I want to hear from you. How detrimental was this loss to the Jaguars?
There's two ways to look at this game. One way is that you and I did tip the Jaguars as a long shot at $36. Okay.
This is for the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There's two ways to look. Either it's the loss they needed to have to propel themselves, but it's the loss that I think they didn't need to have because I don't think they're real. And every year in the NFL, we see the teams, the up-and-coming teams, but then later back half of the season, they get found out. And I think the Jags are about to get found out, like a lot of the other teams. Look, they were terrible. So was Kansas. So,
Yeah.
it was a very, very rough weekend. My tipping certainly wasn't up to normal. It was very disappointing.
Yeah. Listen, I do agree with. Yeah, go on.
In another way, it shows how even the competition is, and it's a credit to the NFL because they've got good games and close competition. So it's hard for the punter, but good for the fans.
Yeah, I completely agree, David, particularly in the AFC, where now we'll talk about this at the end of the episode, but we have really 9 teams in the AFC, actually 10 teams, I'll say, which are in contention for 7 playoff spots and that are in real contention. And this is something that we haven't really seen in a while. And we always have, even though we might see 10 teams competing, 1 through 10, there is not really a lot of difference between these teams, where in the past, it's maybe been 2 through 10 and the Kansas City Chiefs have been up the top. So for this Jacksonville game, I agree with you that there's a potential for them to get found out. But I look at them last year, David. Last year they started off the season 4-8 and proceeded to absolutely catch fire in the back half of the season and win the division, win a home playoff game, coming back from 27-0 down against the Chargers. So I think that Jacksonville has flipped the script this year, but I'm not going to necessarily write them off because of this
No.
game. And I still do think that with 5 games to go in the season, there is potential for them to get back on the horse. But the difference is, what is the status of Trevor Lawrence? Because if he misses 2 to 3...
I don't rate Lawrence as much as you do. Okay, we have a very differing opinion on that. He's out now. They're gone. I'm telling you. Even with him there, he's not as good as what you think. Okay? Like Joe Burrow's your man. Okay? I know you got him in a frame beside your bed. You put it under your pillow. Okay? He is an absolute star. There's no question. But you rate Lawrence through the roof, and he's not that good.
Listen, when you look at the body of Trevor Lawrence's work and you look at the things that he's able to do on the football field, along with only having a second-year head coach, David, the Jacksonville Jaguars were a perpetually embarrassing franchise to the NFL for the past 5 years before Trevor Lawrence got there. So I'm not just going to necessarily dismiss that he's just come in, because he's gotten them to the playoffs. He's gotten them to the divisional round. He's putting them in a position where they have the chance to actually be talked about with Jacksonville and Super Bowl in the same sentence, which is something we haven't seen from them for a long time. And it's not like this Jacksonville team has absolute world beaters all over the field, David. They have a good defense. They have a good defense, not a great defense. Josh Allen on the defensive end has emerged for them. He has 13 sacks on the season for Jacksonville. And on offense, they have some good pieces, but Christian Kirk's their number 1 receiver, and he got injured last night too. So that's going to make it difficult for them. But Christian Kirk is not a number 1 receiver on half the teams in the NFL. So when you look at that, I think that Trevor Lawrence, for what he's actually being given, he is doing an incredible job considering how Jacksonville has struggled in the previous years, and he led them to it. But you can't just act like Trevor Lawrence didn't lead that comeback on a 27-0 deficit to the Los Angeles Chargers. You can't just dismiss that. That did happen. So I look at his potential, and I think
Can we just clarify how bad the Chargers are? Okay.
Okay, but David, last season they were a playoff team. This season I completely agree with you, and we should have seen it coming. But last year the Chargers were a playoff team. Now, it's not bad teams most of the time, with exception to the NFC South. Bad teams don't necessarily always make the playoffs.
I'm 42. I'll be dead before the Chargers win a Super Bowl. They're that bad.
Yeah, probably. Well, look, the Chargers, in my opinion, are in a similar situation to your Buffalo Bills. But I don't really think that's just what we really need to be talking about right now.
No. Seriously, the Buffalo Bills, my man Josh Allen, he will win multiple Super Bowls. Okay?
No, but I believe. No, yeah, and I believe Justin Herbert.
I could coach them.
You could, David.
Yes,
could
I
not,
could.
David. Now you're just talking absolute rubbish.
No, I could coach them to a Super Bowl. I would tell my man Josh, how do you want to play it? Right? Let's go out there and do it. Like when I'm coaching the under-17s, Div 1, right? I'm a good coach, you know that. Okay? Josh Allen's a man, and McDermott is a...
I don't disagree. I don't disagree, but there's a difference between coaching under-17s and the NFL with one of the highest-paid quarterbacks in the league. Look, when we talk about Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, I think they're both in similar spots. And Justin Herbert, in my opinion, when healthy, is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Now, maybe you haven't watched enough Chargers games to see that, but Justin Herbert has one of the best arms in the NFL right now. And he can do a lot of things.
Yes.
He can do a lot of things which isn't being utilized due to the head coaching. And even to the offensive coordinator position.
You should send our podcasts to the Buffalo Bills so I get the coaching role so I can win a Super Bowl for them. Seriously. It's ridiculous. Seriously, McDermott. And Josh, he must be upset.
Look, I completely agree.
Sorry to get off topic.
But you're fine. Look, it is an interesting conversation. But back on track, I think Trevor Lawrence gives a spark plug to Jacksonville that they haven't had in a long time. And I think if you put the correct pieces around him, he has the ability. Trevor Lawrence is a winner, David. He won college national championships. He went nearly 3 years without losing a game at Clemson until last, I can't remember even the date, until one of the games last year. He never lost on a Saturday in his entire life until week 17 of last year.
Do you know what he really
Lawrence
needs?
he's a born winner, okay?
Do you know what he needs? I
What?
hope he's watching because he needs a haircut. Because his hair's terrible. His hair is terrible. That's probably why the team can't win, because his hair's so bad.
a lot of the girls in Jacksonville would probably disagree with you. A lot of the girls around the NFL actually quite like Trevor Lawrence's hair. I kind of agree with you, but it's definitely something that gives him a bit of a extra little flair to his persona. But listen, without Trevor Lawrence, they can't win, and that's what we can both agree on. Now,
they won't win with him. Okay.
Well, maybe not this season. And we said this. I said you tipped them as a long shot to win the Super Bowl. In my opinion, never really had them getting to the Super Bowl, but I believe they were good enough to get to the AFC Championship game. And there's a big difference between being good enough to get to the AFC Championship game and being good enough to get to the Super Bowl. Those are two very different levels of a team. Because you can win if Jacksonville get the number one seed hypothetically, which they won't now. All you need to do is win one game, David, a home game, and you're in the championship game. That's not hard to do. Is to win one playoff game and you're in. So I believe that Jacksonville is good enough to do that, but I don't believe they're good enough as presently constructed to get to a Super Bowl. But I still believe they're good enough to make some noise. But obviously, without Trevor Lawrence, it's not going to happen. But we don't know what his timetable is. He's still not ruled out for this week. So we don't truly know the severity of this injury.
Yes. I'll go back to what I said before. They've flown on the radar. They're a good tip at $34. I just think that it's all over numbered. They might as well play the Super Bowl tomorrow.
Yeah. Listen, the other thing I do want to get your take on, David, is, as I said in the lead, Jake Browning, the backup for the Cincinnati Bengals, has had one of the most complete performances of any quarterback this entire season. He had 5 incompletions for the whole game, over 350 passing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, with the AFC, the Bengals are still in the playoff race at 6-6. They are not out of it. They're only one game off the playoffs.
You are kidding yourself.
No, I'm asking a serious question.
Have you taken a photo of Joe? Have you taken a photo of Joe out and put it back on your bloody under your pillow beside your bed?
I'm asking a serious question. You can't deny
I am not serious about this, Luka.
No, you haven't even let me, David. You haven't even let me ask you the question. Will you please let me ask you the question? Thank you. Now, David, I'm not saying the Cincinnati Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not saying they're even going to win a playoff game. I'm not saying they're even going to get to the playoffs. But I'm saying, after this performance from Jake Browning, I will repeat to you, 32 of 37, 354 yards, 2 touchdowns. There's only a handful of quarterbacks that have had a good game as Jake Browning did last night. Do you think there's any chance the Bengals can make some noise, even by getting into the playoffs with the backup quarterback?
I'm embarrassed you even asked that question. You think that you have some knowledge of the NFL.
David, listen, David, no, you said yourself, it in yourself that currently the 3 teams that hold the wild card positions in the AFC are all no good. Those teams are the Steelers, the Colts, and the Browns, and we can both agree that those teams are absolutely no good. So what is stopping Cincinnati with the backup quarterback from getting to the playoffs? We saw your team that you predicted a couple of years ago, the Philadelphia Eagles with the backup quarterback Nick Foles, went and won a Super Bowl against Tom Brady. So I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl, but to act like a backup quarterback with an extremely talented roster can't do anything in the NFL is a false narrative, in my opinion.
Look, they're not there. Okay? They're pretenders.
So you don't even give them a shot to make the playoffs at all at 6-6, which is the same record as the Buffalo Bills, the same record as the Denver Broncos, and that's one game. David, if they win one game, they are in the hunt for the wild card spot.
Okay, they could possibly make it. It's a small chance, but they won't go anywhere.
I never said they will go anywhere, but I'm asking if there's a chance for them to do something, and I still think that I'm not going to count them out because of how turbulent the AFC is right now, with all the teams winning and losing every week.
I told you last week that the round was a season-defining round last week, and everything is very clear to me after what happened last week. Okay, and I said that on tape. Go back and watch the tape. I said. Everything will unfold this week, okay? And it has.
Well, I agree with you in the grand scheme of things that everything has unfolded. But I think before we get to the biggest prize, which is the Super Bowl, I think there's a few things that aren't clear. And one of these things that I don't think are clear is who's going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl.
I agree with that.
Okay.
They're all shit.
So,
Am I allowed to swear on the podcast?
Well, no, we are a family-friendly show, as I do advertise. But look, we will switch gears. We will switch gears, David, because I really want to get into this topic now with the San Francisco 49ers.
Can I just ask about the Bengals? We'll do a podcast
Go
on
ahead.
Friday.
Go ahead.
The Bengals are playing the Colts, right? Now, the Colts are on a big run.
Yes.
They were 14-0 or 14-3. It was 4 o'clock in the morning here when I was trying to watch it. Big comeback. Again, won't win the Super Bowl, but a good victory. Now, I'm telling you, I'm looking at the odds here, 187, they're morals to beat the Bengals.
Well, listen, David, there's one thing I will tell you, that the Indianapolis Colts were 2 blocked punts away from getting blown out by the Tennessee Titans, who were 4-7 on the season.
Who I don't rate either.
Who I don't rate either, but I picked the Titans to win that game, and they should have won it. There was 2 blocked punts. When have you ever seen 2 blocked punts in an NFL game?
I did tip the Colts, thanks very much.
You did tip the Colts, but David, I'm telling you, they were 2 blocked punts away from losing by 14 points to the Tennessee Titans, who start a rookie quarterback and have won 4 games all season. David, the Tennessee Titans fired their special teams coordinator because of the absolute calamity that happened on the weekend in Nashville. So I'm not going to give the Colts any credit for this win at all. They shouldn't have won this game. And I completely disagree with you that they're going to go and beat the Bengals. I don't know who's going to win. I need to have a proper look at it. But I'm not just going to write off the Bengals after this performance and say that the Colts are going to beat them, because they were 2 block punts away from losing by 2 scores to the Tennessee Titans. So I think you need to watch the film and reevaluate the Colts' performance in that game.
I watched the game.
So what happened aside from the 2 blocked punts that led to touchdowns for the Colts?
The Titans are terrible.
They are terrible. The Colts had 2 blocked punts. So what does that make the Colts?
Look, it's a one trick pony to win the Super Bowl. We'll get to that later. But
we will get to that later.
My man Lamar, right? Like, it's such a bad season. Like, they're playing very ordinary. You should send this. Have you started practicing your kicking instead of giving up soccer?
Oh, listen, David, look, I am gonna pull some rank here because we have spent 18 minutes talking about this topic, and we really do need to move on because there are bigger fish to fry, and those fish were frying in Philadelphia on Sunday when the 49ers came to town and absolutely ramrodded the Philadelphia Eagles 42-19.
Luka, I thought you said it was family friendly. Ramrodding, that's a bit not family friendly. Jeepers.
Well, listen, that's just what the game was, David. And lucky for me, I actually had the 49ers winning this game, unlike someone
I wanted to change my tip. And you David, if you change it.
No, David, if you let me
I called you up and I said, I want to change the 49ers. And then you talked me back into the Eagles.
No, listen,
listen. David, you ramrodded me in that game.
David, I'm going to say what I have to say, and then I will give you the floor to spew whatever you want in this show. But Brock Purdy, after a very ordinary start in the first quarter, finished the game 19-27 for 314 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Jalen Hurts finished the game 26-45 completions, 298 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. A very interesting game on both sides, David. The 49ers offense in the first quarter had 6 total plays for -6 yards. Purdy was 1 of 4 passing for -4 yards and then proceeded to lead 6 straight touchdown drives, the most by the 49ers offense since 2012, David. And what happened this year, they also went to the Super Bowl. The Eagles and the 49ers both had some big reception yards. The 49ers, Deebo Samuel, 4 receptions, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Eagles, Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown combined for 210 yards, 19 receptions, and 1 touchdown. Now, David, this loss puts the Eagles only with a one-game lead ahead of both the 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys for the one seed in the NFL. They face Dallas next week in Dallas. But I want to ask you, what happened to the Philadelphia Eagles in this performance?
Okay, so let's go back to our last episode. And I said to
Please.
you, right, the Eagles, this is a season-defining game, and we'll
Yes.
find out who wins the Super Bowl. Okay?
Yes.
So the Eagles have been getting by and by and by, and
Yes.
you called it correctly, and I will admit I'm wrong. You can't admit when you're wrong, okay? But I
That's
can.
just completely false, but please continue.
No. I can admit I was wrong, okay? San Francisco came out, blew them away, and they will win the Super Bowl, okay? Absolute certainty. They're $4.25. I tipped at the start of the season at $8. I didn't tip the Eagles because you know my stats and I don't do stats, I'm a gut feel guy, right? But stats say that the runner-up in the Super Bowl has won one in about the last 30, I think, okay?
Well, 0.
No, I think I've won one. But they're gone. Eagles are gone, okay? San Francisco win. They blew them away, and the Eagles have been sneaking through, and you were right and I was wrong, okay? Purdy really, honestly, I didn't think he'd stand up like this in his second year coming off the rookie list. And he's really playing fantastic. And we know their defense is the best in the NFL last year and this year. Okay? So they're it. Like that was a domination.
It was a domination, and I'm glad you're so high on the 49ers now after the fact. But if you were really on the same page as me...
I did tip them. Listen, I did tip them at the start of the season. I told you they would win the Super Bowl.
Okay, and I tipped the Bengals at the start of the season, and Joe Burrow fractured his wrist ligament and is out for the season. So if you really thought
good podcasts, you're a terrible tipster.
If you really listen, David, both of my Super Bowl pick had a season-ending injury, so I don't know what you want me to do about that. I don't control the fate of the NFL. I just see what I see, and when the Cincinnati Bengals are healthy, they're the best team. They're the best team in the NFL.
All you do.
Sorry, actually, speaking of Super Bowl predictions, who actually did you tip to win the Super Bowl last year when they faced?
Yes, I know.
Thank you. And who did I tip? Actually, yeah, that's right. I tipped the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, and I tried to talk you out of the Eagles. I told you they were no good, and Mahomes was better. And I've talked you out of the Eagles all of this year, but you still decided to go on the record and tip them to win this game. I don't care what happened off the record. On camera, you said the Philadelphia Eagles were going to win this game, and what happened? They lost this game. Now, I'm going to tell you why they lost, because the reason they lost is exactly why I said they would lose on Friday. And it all comes down, at the end of the day, to the rushing game, David. Do you know how many rushing yards the Philadelphia Eagles had on the weekend?
No, I was too upset watching the game.
They had 46 rush yards with 2.6 yards per carry. Do you know how many rush yards the 49ers had on the weekend?
No.
They had 146 rushing yards with 5.3 yards per carry. Now, David, I stressed to you on Friday that when the Eagles face good teams, they allow them to run the football, and this is exactly why they lost on the weekend, and it's exactly why they lost to the Super Bowl, to the Kansas City Chiefs, when they allowed 158 rushing yards for the totality of the game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Because when push comes to shove, the Eagles cannot stop the run in big games. And this is the real reason why they lost. Not to mention the fact that they also just couldn't seem to tackle in the open field, which Debo would catch a screen pass and proceed to run 70 yards down the field, being untouched by Philadelphia defenders. Now, I agree with you, Brock Purdy's playing well, but I could have stood out there and thrown a pass across the sideways to Debo Samuel, and he could have run 70 yards, and I would have scored a touchdown. Now, Brock still did look.
I've seen you throw. You're not actually that bad. You should change. At
the end of the day, Brock did well with what he was given, and the Philadelphia Eagles gave them easy scores. Now, I don't indict that against Brock Purdy. He still played a great game, but I'm not going to act like he was throwing absolute haymakers the whole game, fitting balls into tight windows, because that just simply wasn't the case. He did what he needed to do to win the game. And the weapons that the San Francisco 49ers have is what allowed them to win this game Christian McCaffrey had 94 yards rushing, David. I told you he's the best running back in NFL. That's actually not up for debate. He is by far and away the best running back in the NFL, and he showed you that on the weekend. Now, I told you the rushing game was going to be the difference in this ball game. The Eagles had 48 passing attempts to 18 rush attempts in total. This is something that they also go away from in big games. Is they want Jalen Hurts to be pass crazy, and the Eagles play the best, David, when they run the football down your throats. But the San Francisco 49ers have the best defense in the NFL, and they stopped the run. So maybe that's why they got forced into passing. But I told you the run game was going to be the reason why the San Francisco 49ers win. 146 rushing yards to 46, and that was the biggest difference in the ball game. I don't care what you say.
I love how you get on your high horse when you tip one winner out of a whole weekend, and you think you're some sort of guru because you got one game right. All the others you get wrong because you're a hack. But you just get on
David,
the high horse and just go
David,
on and on and on and on and on. Okay, you got one game right. Big deal.
Listen, David, I hate bringing things off camera into the podcast, but you simply give me no choice because I also believe that someone on this side of the camera actually tipped the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football, while someone who's talking right now actually tipped the Green Bay Packers to win that game too. And if I'm not mistaken, the Green Bay Packers beat the Kansas City Chiefs 27-19. So I want you to stop with this false narrative because every time you say something like this, it just gets thrown back in your face. And you really need to actually think about what you say when it comes to my tipping ability versus what actually happens with the results.
You're a terrible tipster. Let's put it on the record. Okay, Mahomes blew that game. That should have gone to overtime, and they should have won. Mahomes
played horrendous. How did Mahomes blow that game?
His last drive was absolutely disgraceful, and that throw that he sent off was ridiculous.
What throw? The Hail Mary?
Yes.
Why was it ridiculous?
Because he just took too much time off the clock. And
but it's a Hail Mary.
He played terrible.
David, there's one thing I'll tell you about Hail Marys is normally when you have to do a Hail Mary, time doesn't really matter. But David, he got absolutely outplayed by Jordan Love, who had 300-plus passing yards and 3 touchdowns, while Mahomes threw 1 touchdown and a pick.
Mahomes played terrible.
Okay, you
had a bad game goalkeeping. Okay.
Okay, well I wasn't the one.
When you play bad, that's how bad Mahomes played.
Okay,
seriously.
Listen, David. The difference is I saw this game coming, which is why I tipped the Green Bay Packers to win.
I didn't miss a minute of it.
Okay, but you didn't think it would happen, and then it happened, and you're like, oh, Mahomes played bad. I told you that the Green Bay Packers were going to win this game. I saw this coming from an absolute mile away. It shouldn't have taken Mahomes actually playing the way he did for you to realize that. You should have had the same foresight, which unfortunately you didn't. And that's just the reality of the situation.
Look, we've got to agree to disagree. You're a bad tipster. I'm a superstar. And
listen,
that's 2 games you got right for the weekend. That's the first 2 you got right since the whole season.
Listen, David, because you have challenged me on this compilation, I'm going to go back to the very beginning of Priceless Takes, and every single big topic that we have talked about, I'm going to put into a little video, and I'm going to post it for all the viewers to see, so we can really see what you're talking about. Because I go back to our second episode last year when we debated who would win in the playoff game, the Cincinnati Bengals or the Buffalo Bills. And I'm pretty sure I was right about that too, as I was right about many other things, which include this weekend's game with the 49ers, which include the Super Bowl last year with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles, amongst other things. So I really don't like this false narrative.
All you do is pick out one game here and one game there and pretend that you're some sort of bloody good tipster, which is not right.
Well, David, even if you go to our tip spreadsheet, for our viewers who don't know, David and I actually do weekly tips in the NFL, and we go through every single game and say who's going to win,
change my
and say who's going to lose.
Corrupt. You are corrupt.
No, David, I really don't appreciate the slander. What happened on the weekend, which we shouldn't be talking about this, because if you really had the courage of your convictions, you would have said, no, I want to change my tip. You said, I want to change your tip. And I said, you can change your tip if you want. I said,
you wouldn't let me do it.
I said, you can change your tip if you want, but you have to live with the consequences if you change your tip. And you said, no, I will keep my tip. And if you had to change your tip, you still would have been a flip-flopper, but at least you would have been right. This way, you're just flat out wrong.
You are unbelievable.
David, listen, I'm just speaking the facts. And if you don't want to understand the facts, that's on you. But the reality of the situation is we can both agree that the San Francisco 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl when it's all said and done because they are just an absolute juggernaut. And I really do not see a team that has a chance to even really contend with the San Francisco 49ers, apart from my team, the Bengals, who went into San Francisco and beat them 31-17, David, but obviously they're not going to compete with them now with the injury to Joe Burrow. But at least the team that I tipped to win the Super Bowl has shown the ability to beat the 49ers.
This is you convoluting all of your statements to pretend you're right. Like, seriously.
Okay, David, did the Bengals...
You should be a barrister. What do they call them in America? They call them
Okay,
barristers?
David, yes, they do. But David,
because you just turn everything around to make yourself sound right. You're kidding yourself.
David, can I ask you, did the Cincinnati Bengals go to San Francisco and beat them by 14 points? Yes or no?
Okay, we both thought with your...
No, answer my question.
No,
did they do that?
With the love of your life, Joe Burrows, okay, we both thought the Bengals would win, okay? But unfortunately, are you still writing love letters, by the way?
No, he actually writes them to me now. We've changed roles. Yeah.
Okay, right, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's hope he comes back next year because, yes, they did have a good chance to win, but they're gone, like everyone else.
Listen, David, we will end the show talking about the AFC again because injuries is just absolutely tearing this conference apart. And similar to what we talked about on Friday, there's no clear front runner, but there have been some things that have happened this weekend which have definitely changed the conference. The first thing, because apparently I don't admit when I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to say that I was wrong about my Denver Broncos in that game against the Houston Texans. And I believe
he talked me into that as well.
Well, David, unfortunately,
the Texans can win the Super Bowl next year. I'm telling you, they're coming of age.
David, if it's not my fault that I'm convincing and make a lot of valid points when we talk NFL, but if you want to make your own decisions, I encourage you to make your own decisions and not piggyback off my knowledge that I have when it comes to these games.
Goodness.
Unfortunately, Russell Wilson, unfortunately, was not able to stand up to it in the end of this game.
It's 7:30 in the morning here, and you are just absolutely barreling me. Seriously.
Well, listen, David, I think it makes up for lost time with all the episodes you missed on the podcast, if I'm being completely honest with you. You've had it coming. So I'm going to keep talking about the Denver Broncos because they fall to 6-6. And technically they're not out, but they are out, realistically speaking. They're not going to go anywhere. I would be surprised if they slid into the playoffs. But look, Russell Wilson, when push comes to shove, he's just not there. And he can be there maybe against a team. Well, yeah, listen.
Did I overrate Russell? Or
was Pete
Carroll that good? Was Pete Carroll that good a coach, or did I overrate Russell? Because let's go back to. But no, I want to ask you this question, right? Russell, right, and Carroll were like Brady and Belichick. Now, when Brady's left, when Brady's left,
they won one Super Bowl.
Yeah, but they were very solid, right?
Yeah.
Now, everyone said that Belichick was the greatest coach in the history of the NFL. Okay, that's just been said. But since Brady's left, Belichick's gone. They've won 2 games this year.
Well, listen. I do agree with you, but the Patriots, statistically, in this entire season, have allowed the fewest points per game in the NFL on the defensive side. I'm just letting you know, David. They lost a game 6-0. 6-0. They lost a game this weekend. 6-0. They couldn't score a single point.
If you look at my coaching record, right?
Listen, David, if we're going to talk about that, I'm just going to move on with what I was saying. I don't have the time to listen to your under-17 coaching record, unfortunately.
I should be coaching NFL.
Well, look, come and give. I don't know. There's plenty of. You can go to the NFL website and apply for a job and do what Sean McVay did and start as the equipment manager and work your way up to the head coach.
He can coach.
Oh, he
You
can.
know,
He is no.
you know the most. I'll tell you the most important thing which you don't get. The most important thing in any sporting team, right, is the list. And that comes down to the recruitment, and then the
List of
coach
what?
just put who's on the roster.
Well,
Like who manages the players and who comes into the team is more important than the coach.
not in the
Now, for your
NFL. It's
American,
not.
yes, it is. You go back
No, it's
to
not.
that now. Now, the
No,
American viewers
no.
won't understand. No, no, the
The
best
best.
example. No, no. Let me finish. Stop interrupting me
Please.
as normal, right? The American viewers won't understand this, but there's a game in Australia called AFL. Okay. Now there was a team called Geelong. Now their list was that good. Seriously, anyone could have coached them to win. So it's about player management and about the players in the team, not so much the coach. The coaches are
Okay.
overrated.
Well, can I pose this question to you? So, in the first quarter of the San Francisco Philadelphia game, when San
Mm-hmm.
Francisco had 6 plays for -6 yards in the entire first quarter, did the coaching adjustments have absolutely nothing to do with the miraculous turnaround and how they just happened to score 6 straight touchdowns in 6 straight possessions? How does that happen magically if it wasn't for the coach?
So you turn things around every
No,
time to
I'm
make
asking
yourself
you a
sound right.
question because I'm right and you can't answer. I'm asking you a question because it's the coaches that make the best coaches make the adjustments that win Super Bowls, and that's the reality of the situation. That's why you see the best coaches year after year after year. We can all agree the Pittsburgh Steelers are an absolutely horrendous team, but Mike Tomlin is that good of a coach that year after year after year, you find yourself wondering, how are the Steelers in the playoff mix again? How are they actually, what are they doing? And it's because Mike Tomlin's that good of a coach. Similar to the Rams, Sean McVay is that good of a coach that they are having a down year. I don't think you can name one player on the defensive side for the Rams other than Aaron Donald. They are having a down year, and they are still
Listen,
6-6 with a
I
chance to
rate
make the
McVay.
playoffs.
Okay. You tell me about Belichick.
What about it? What do you want me to tell you?
Brady left.
Yeah, I
Hasn't
just
been.
told you what happened. I just told you what happened. Brady left, and the New England Patriots have allowed the fewest points per game in the NFL in defense and have no quarterback to play with. Now, David, if you switch
Listen,
Bill, if
listen.
David, listen.
I could have coached.
What?
I could have coached the Patriots to those Super Bowls with Brady as my quarterback. I would have just said, Tommy, the
Okay, well, what? But they
superstar.
lost two. They lost two to the Giants. So why?
Yeah, but
What do you have to
I'm
say about
just
that? It's not
saying.
like they won every year.
Look, all they said to Purdy on the weekend was, just relax. You're a gun. Settle down. And that's what he did. Now, seriously, anyone can do that. He just needs some composure.
Okay, listen, we're getting into a much larger debate here, but David, I agree with you if we're talking about the NBA. The NBA is a players' league, the NFL is a coaches' league, and I think that
I disagree.
you can ask a panel of ESPN analysts, and they will 100% take my side because
I
it
know
is
more
a
than them as
coaches'
well.
league.
I know more
It
than them
is
as well.
it is a
Well, if it's
coaches'
a
league.
coaches' league, why haven't the Bills sacked McDermott? Seriously, McDermott got away because they sacked one of the coaches underneath him, right? He got a little scapegoat. He has got to go. Because my Buffalo
I
Bills,
agree, but
they have got
that's the Buffalo Bills.
they have got a Super Bowl in them. Because my man Josh is the best quarterback in the NFL. He's the best quarterback in the whole world.
Okay, now you're just getting completely out of hand here. Josh Allen's not the best quarterback in the NFL.
By a
Okay,
mile.
so what happened last year when Joe Burrow came and beat him 27-10 and tore him to pieces? What happened this year when Josh Allen had a
Coach.
chance? Don't know what happened when. So now it's the coach's fault. So why do you act so? You can't say it's a players' league. If Josh Allen was that good, Sean McDermott shouldn't matter. If he's that good, if it's a players'
He
league,
makes the wrong
you're making.
plays.
Okay,
He
so it is.
makes
So
the
it is
wrong
this.
plays.
So it is. But who tells him what plays to make?
All the
The
coaches
coach.
underneath him.
The coach.
Yes.
Exactly. So if the coaches are the ones telling the quarterbacks to make the plays, then if it's a bad coach, the quarterback's going to play bad. So therefore,
If I
David,
was Josh, do you know what? If I was Josh, right, and McDermott, they're putting the calls through, you know what I'd say? I'm not allowed to swear on your podcast, you won't let me. I'd say, mate, I'd turn it off and say, stick it up your bum. I'm going to win this game on myself. Okay?
okay, so that's exactly what the Steelers quarterback did, and they fired their offensive coordinator in one of their games. The Steelers offensive coordinator called a play. Kenny Pickett said, no, I'm going to throw a 50-yard bomb, and they beat the Ravens, who are now the 2 seed in the AFC. So if Josh Allen really wanted to, he should have done that. He could have done that. He's had ample opportunities to do that. But you can't sit here and say that it's about the players, but then say it's the coach's fault, but the players are playing bad. Make up your mind, David.
Luka. Seriously. You just watch, if they get a new coach, okay? So speaking of Belichick, he's better than what I'm saying, but I'd like Belichick to go and coach Josh because there is a superstar coach who's gone shit house because he needs the right people on the field.
But see,
okay?
no, but see,
Put Belichick,
okay.
put Belichick with the Bills, and they go on a run like Brady and Belichick went to. It takes two.
And you know why? And you know why? You know why they wouldn't?
Why?
Right? Because Brady was a selfless leader who did sacrifices for his team to win, and Josh Allen is arrogant and not a leader,
he is not.
and he crumbles in the biggest moments, David.
I'm going to call him after this, okay?
Please do.
And tell him to watch the podcast because you're bagging my man. And he's
listen, everything I've said about Josh Allen since we started this podcast has turned out to be right. So I have no problem if Josh Allen comes and watches the podcast.
Wait.
And if Josh Allen actually has 2 cents about him,
if they get a new coach, they will go on a dynasty.
I wouldn't say dynasty, but David, I don't disagree with you because I said that the coaching is the reason that they're not unlocking the best out of Josh Allen. I agree with you. If the right coach comes along, I'm going to look at the Bills differently. That's because coaches are more important, which is the point I'm trying to make, and the point that you can't.
Which is what I'm trying to say about my. I'm trying to tell you about my coaching record, and you laugh about it.
Okay, David, but you can't compare an under-17 basketball team, which you've coached for 2 months, to the NFL.
No, well, Div 1. You know, come on.
Okay, but still, listen, David. I'm going to ask you a simple question. Okay. I'm going to ask you a very simple question. Who has the best chance of dethrone?
I might go in, right, and be a professional coach just so I can be on your podcast and tell you you're wrong.
That'd be great. You'd get me lots of views. So I have no problem doing that at all. But right. I want to ask you a question. We've had the Chiefs lose. The Steelers quarterback's now injured. The Jacksonville quarterback's now injured. So now 4 of the 7 teams in the AFC playoffs right now are currently playing with backup quarterbacks. Who has the best chance of dethroning the Chiefs in the AFC? If you had to pick one team and one team only.
I told you last weekend was the season-defining luck week, right? So I've only really got one focus on one team that I think are certainties. The rest of it's wide open. The rest of it's wide open because of injuries. Okay. It's really. I'm just. You can see me off camera here. I'm just looking up what the bookies are thinking, because, it's becoming quite difficult, to tell you the truth.
Okay. And David, this is why we're having these conversations, because I believe that 95% of the NFL world right now can tell you the San Francisco 49ers is going to win the Super Bowl. But there's very few people who can talk about who's going to come out of the AFC, which is why I'm leaning on you and the knowledge that the NFL guru should possess in telling me who has the best chance of dethroning the Chiefs in the AFC.
Okay, the problem I've got is I don't rate the Dolphins, but they've had a very good season, right? But they just keep winning because they fly under the radar. Now, I think Lamar is flawed, okay? But his running game is the best in the NFL, okay? But his arm is not good enough. And I would not have paid him the money he got. It was 40 or 50 million US, all right? I wouldn't have paid it because he just, in those big games, he just can't produce. Yes, he's good enough to get to a Super Bowl. I just don't think they can win it. But look, if I have to have a pick, I'll go the Ravens.
Yeah,
But
listen.
they're just the Dolphins can't get there. Seriously, it's the Bills' year, but he can't coach.
Well, listen, the Bills, I think the thing I'll sound off on the Bills because they have had a bye this week. So with everything that's gone on from the 49ers demolition to the Jacksonville injury to the Chiefs losing, the Bills have just been sitting here with absolutely no one talking about it.
Flying way under the radar.
And they are, but I can't fathom a scenario where I see the Buffalo Bills doing anything the way that this
But
season's gone.
the way I've got to set against the Dolphins and Lamar, okay? Because all I do is watch NFL all week, right? And replays and you name it, okay? I'm telling you, Josh, right, is better than your man Joe. All right? He is an absolute star.
Listen, David, there's a difference between a star and a superstar, and I might agree with you that Josh Allen's a star. But when you talk about the level of superstardom that Joe Burrow possesses, I think Josh Allen will always be the 1B to Joe Burrow's 1A when push comes to shove. But I'm going to answer the question that I asked myself, and that is who has the best chance of dethroning the Chiefs in the AFC? And unfortunately, similar to how you put it, it's not an easy answer because I think it all comes down to matchups. Now, which teams have the ability to beat the Chiefs in the playoffs? It's not the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've versed 3 times in the past year. The Chiefs have won all of them. It's not the Miami Dolphins. We saw what the Dolphins did to the Chiefs. We saw what the Chiefs did to the Dolphins earlier in the season. Now, I don't think it's the Buffalo Bills either, based off what's happened to them. They've lost to the Chiefs 2 times in the playoffs. I don't know about the Houston Texans because we haven't even seen them if they're even going to be in the playoffs.
They're a year early.
It's not going to be the
Texans.
The
Texans are The Texans are a very good team.
They are. It's not the Steelers. It's not the Browns. It's not the Colts. None of them are going to beat the Chiefs. And it brings me to Lamar, who has actually shown the ability to beat the Chiefs. Now this is where it gets funny, David, because currently the Dolphins hold the number 1 seed. And as it stands, the Ravens and the Chiefs would verse each other in the second round of the playoffs. Now, I think that the Ravens can dethrone the Chiefs. And I think Lamar has the ability to beat Mahomes in a playoff game. But I don't believe that Lamar just because he beats Mahomes doesn't mean he's going to go to a Super Bowl. And I look at the matchup between the Miami Dolphins and the Baltimore Ravens. And I saw Tua Tagovailoa go into Baltimore last year, lead a 21-point fourth quarter comeback, and throw over 500 yards on Lamar Jackson and that defense. Now, these two teams are going to face off in 2 weeks' time, I believe. So we'll get a better glimpse of what would happen between these two teams. But I think the Ravens have the ability to beat the Chiefs. But I think the Dolphins have the ability to beat the Ravens. I don't think the Dolphins or the Jags or the Texans can beat the Chiefs. So it really just comes down to who plays who. But if I had to give you a simple answer, I agree with you that it is the Ravens. Even though we both agree that Lamar is flawed, but he matches up well against the Chiefs when he plays them.
I would actually like Lamar to win the Super Bowl because everyone is in the same opinion.
He's a great guy.
Everyone has the same opinion as me. His arm is not good enough. Okay?
Well, it's just not in the playoffs it's not good enough. In the regular season it's okay. He won an MVP, so he has to have a good enough.
Regular season he's great.
Yeah,
but his arm's just not good enough. And do you know what?
Yeah.
He knows it. He practices all off season. All he does is throw. That's all he does. Because without a doubt, he's the best runner in the game. But he's just arms flawed.
Yeah, listen, David, both you and I think the Ravens have the best chance of dethroning the Chiefs, but we will see how this AFC playoff picture turns out. Because
I'm telling you, Texans and Bills, right? They can make a run. I just wish they get rid of McDermott, and they'd be certain.
Yeah, listen,
they could beat San Francisco if Belichick was coaching. Okay.
I just told you the reasons why they wouldn't, so I'm not going to get into
Ah,
that again, David. But listen, David, this is all we have time for this episode. We've nearly gone on 50 minutes now, so we will be back on Friday for another episode of Priceless Takes. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is all for Priceless
can you
Takes
just say that?
episode.
Can you just say that you're wrong sometimes because you're never
I've
wrong.
told you, I just told you I was wrong when I picked the Denver Broncos to beat the Houston Texans on the weekend, and I said it loud and clear for
And
you to
can you
hear
tell
that
all
I
the
was
viewers
wrong.
that I want to change my tip to the 49ers and you wouldn't let me? Just for the
I,
record,
I
before we
just
go.
explained. I just explained for the record that I gave you the option to change your
You
tip,
wouldn't let
and
me.
you
No, you
declined.
didn't.
No,
No, you
I
didn't.
said,
No,
David,
no,
David,
no.
David, David. I am, I
Shocking.
am as fair. I'm as fair as it comes. Okay, I
Normally you
promise you
are.
that.
But when it comes to
I promise
tipping,
you that.
you
No,
are, yeah,
no,
no,
no.
no, don't give me
I'm not.
no.
David, there was a word, there was a term you used to describe yourself last week when you talked about, I forgot which team you went to tip. Which team was it? There's a term you used to describe yourself. It starts with, first letter starts with P and the second letter starts with an S, and we can't repeat that word on camera.
No, we
But if I'm
can't.
being, but if I'm being completely honest with you, like, if you really wanted to, I would have let you change your tip. Now, that's end of story.
All
Okay.
right, sign off. Goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is all for Priceless Takes, episode 46. Thank you for tuning in for this episode on the NFL. Make sure to follow us on our social media platforms. We have Instagram, we have TikTok, and YouTube, along with our Spotify platform, if you are not listening on Spotify currently. Before we go, David, it's going to be in between episodes, but on the 7th of December, which is in 2 days for me, 3 day, or 1 day for you even, marks the 1 year anniversary of Priceless Takes, Talking Sports with Luka Price. So I want to say a big thank you to you, David, for being a loyal guest on the show for the past year. I also want to thank the viewers for staying with us for the past year and hopefully for many more years to come. We've reached 47 episodes by the time the next one's posted out, which is nearly an episode a week for a full year, which I think is a pretty good effort. So thank you to everyone for being with both of us and for myself through the Priceless Takes journey. And thank you for a great year of podcasting.
Well done to you, but I think you need to be more honest with your tipping. But
Well, listen,
you've done a good job. You've done a good job.
we can agree to disagree on that, but David, I will get that compilation of me being right for you as soon as I can, and I will make sure the world hears about it. But, ladies and gentlemen, that is all for Priceless Takes episode 46. I am your host, Luka Price, and we will see you next time.
See ya.